All right. Hello, everyone. Welcome in. We're going to give just a couple seconds before we start the conversation this afternoon for me, this morning for Kevin and others. We'll give it just maybe another 20, 30 seconds. For folks just coming in, welcome. Really excited about this conversation today with Kevin John Fong. And we'll give it another 10. It's lunchtime for folks. Some. All right, let's dive right in. Welcome everyone. Thanks for joining us. I'm really excited to be in conversation with Kevin John Fong this afternoon around the theme of navigating change through a lens of bridging and belonging. I'm very, very excited. I've been looking forward to this conversation with our amazing guest today. Kevin, I'm happy to be in conversation with you. When I was reading all of your materials, I had a long list of questions that I wanted to cover today. We won't have enough time to cover all of it, but I am excited to be in conversation. Just a little introduction, Kevin, before we get started. Kevin is a cultural translator, a facilitator, and founder of the Kahakulei Institute, where he supports leaders and communities in building cultures of belonging. Rooted in East Asian and Native Hawaiian traditions, his work kind of blends ancient wisdom and belonging and organizational strategy. I'm really happy to be with you today. It's a pleasure to be in conversation.
Thank you, Andrew. Aloha mai kako, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are. My name is Kevin Kahakulei Akea John Fong. You can call me Kevin to keep it simple. My pronouns are he, they, and oia. Oia is a Hawaiian word that means hey you or beloved one. It's a gender neutral term, so we like to kind of keep that going. I'm currently bringing you greetings from Lawndale, North Carolina, which is just about an hour north of Charlotte. I'm visiting some family here, but my home is the land of the Ramaytush Ohlone people, otherwise known as the Mission District, San Francisco. So to all you folks out in West Coast, hope you're doing well. Geez, thank you, Andrew, for inviting me and having me here. It's a real honor to be here.
Absolutely.
Let's have a conversation. So, what do you want to talk about?
Well, I think I want to start with just a little bit more from kind of your story, how you got to where you are now. I really, when I was reading over your materials, I'd love for you to give a little bit of a snapshot to our viewers here around how you were raised with the elements that you speak about in your work and kind of some of the principles of those elements and how you think about that right now currently.
Thank you. We are facing some times these days, and especially with change has always been the constant in our lives and throughout time, but now that we've got these things, change is just a 24/7 thing. Like our parents, our grandparents, they were able to kind of shut things off and go to sleep or be with family, but at 11:30 we're on these things and engaged, and sometimes it's really hard to turn it off. And so my big question that I've been asking over the past several years is, how do we navigate change through a lens of belonging? So we're not going to judgment, we're going to wonder, right? And so I went back to grandmother wisdom, because whoever your grandparents were, they had to go through a lot of stuff just to make it through the day. Not that we don't have to, but it's like they really had to do stuff, right? And so I went back there and I really mined some wisdom, and actually took that, and it became my organizing strategy to move forward. So we're going to try to share some slides, and I understand that this will be a first for Equity in the Center, but we're going to try to do it. So Joel, yes. Can you share look at that? Isn't that great? Okay, and let's just try to go to a slide deck to the very top. So this actually comes from my East Asian heritage, from my Chinese side, and it's actually called the five elements. And so if you've ever had acupuncture or done Chinese herbs or feng shuied your house, there's a Tai Chi principle that is based on the five elements. You eat macrobiotic food. You'll be familiar with this notion of what the five elements are. And so let's see if we can't get to slide number 3.
Kevin, you might have to
Oh,
control the
I'm
slide
controlling it.
from
Oh,
your
okay.
side. Well,
I have many gifts, and one of those gifts is not technology. So, okay. All
and
right.
I think if you,
Okay. Now, I can't see you, Andrew. So, can you see the full slide deck?
I can see the full slide deck,
Okay.
but you've still got the list of slides on the left hand side. But you are on slide 1. I can see
Isn't that lovely? I'm just going to stick with this
that
because,
sounds
yes,
great.
we can spend 10 minutes trying to do the tech.
I,
So, you're now seeing the slide with Antipua, right?
I'm seeing navigating change with the 5 elements. Yes.
Okay. I'm going to try this again.
There we go.
So sorry. Okay. I'm just going to go here.
Yep. Auntie's on the screen now.
Okay, so this is Antipuanani Burgess, one of my dear teachers and mentors. But I really want to focus on this last question. You want the world to be different, then start by looking within. Start by looking within. And that's really, we know that movement building is an inside out uh, um, methodology that we have to embrace. If we kind of are always responding without having a good core, a good center, then things get pretty rough. And so with that, I kind of went deep in and took some lessons from my grandmother. So this is a picture of me at the age of about 7, and that's my maternal grandmother, who was sporting a little black dress back in 1969. So before they became a thing. I think, at least in my culture, all of us have a cool grandmother and a really stern grandmother. You can tell that this grandmother was a cool one. So her gift in the world was to make soup, and she used the 5 elements to determine what kind of soup she would make. I grew up in Sacramento, California, where it gets really, really hot in the summer. And but every day grandma would make soup, and at 4 o'clock she would call us and say, come pick up your soup. And it's like, grandma, it's 100 degrees soup. And she'd say, come pick up your soup, it's good for you. And what she would do is go outside every morning, Andrew, and read the weather. So if it's 100 degrees, she would say, too much fire in the air, so I'm going to make a soup that is water based. And even though soup is liquid, she would actually make watercress and tofu soup or seaweed soup. And so the water-based properties of the ingredients would actually, even though that soup was piping hot, would cool down your constitution and you feel better, right? And when it was a cold November, December day and the wind was coming off the Sacramento River and cutting through you like knives, there was actually a Chinese term in our dialect, and it was knife wind. And she would say, too much metal. The metal is cutting right through you. And so grandma would make an earth-based soup, as you can see there, oxtail soup with turnips and carrots and lots of root vegetables, and that earth properties would embrace the sharpness of the wind of the metal and make you feel better. If she needed fire, she would make hot and sour soup. Or if she needed to bring in the element of wood, she would make a lovely mustard green, light herbaceous soup. Or a metal soup would be something like a shellfish soup that's encased in shells. And so that would bring the structure. And so grandma knew that the 5 elements was a way in which you can navigate the world and bring about healing for yourself, your family, your community. Fast forward 20 years, I was directing an AIDS clinic, and this was during the height of the epidemic. And I was noticing not only my patients, but the staff was totally beleaguered. We never knew what was going to, meet us as we opened our doors. And so I then started to bring in the 5 elements through food, through color, through formation. Are we going to meet today in a circle? Are we going to do a standing meeting? Do I need to bring in visuals to bring this forth? And I brought in all kinds of different materials, maybe a fountain, or perhaps I just served water, right? And if we needed water, or hot tea if we needed something hotter. And so with that, I began to intuitively use the elements, and it turned over these past 20, 25 years into an organizing principle. So I'm going to take you through this and then give you all a calculator, an app, so you can actually calculate your own 5 elements profile. So stay with me for
Love
about
it.
4 more minutes and we're going to get to work. Andrew, are you seeing the slides that says the principles of the 5 elements?
I am. I am.
Great. So 3 things you all need to know about the 5 elements before we get to work. And so if you remember anything about this conversation, remember this. Number 1, there are 5 elements in the system, and they are water, wood, fire, earth, and metal. Water, wood, fire, earth, and metal. I know that some cultures and traditions have 4 elements. The East Asian tradition has 5 with the addition of metal. Okay. Often people ask also, where is air? Because air is an important part of my culture and tradition. We believe that too, but my people are really pragmatic, and they say that you cannot see the air unless it's blowing through the trees. And so all of the characteristics of air, thunder, wind, etc., are embedded in the element of wood. So water, wood, fire, earth, and metal. Principle 2, the elements interact in 2 distinct formations or cycles. The first is a circular formation that moves in the clockwise direction, and that's called the supporting cycle. Okay, let's start with water, and we move circularly clockwise. Water feeds wood, wood then fuels fire. Out of fire comes ash or earth. Out of earth comes minerals or metal, and then metal condenses to form water. That's called the supporting cycle. And we also have then the restraining cycle that moves in this direction, starting again with water. Water controls fire. Fire melts or tempers metal. Metal chops wood. Wood depletes the nutrients from the earth. And then earth contains or channels water, right? You build an irrigation ditch, or you have a ceramic pot that carries water. So we have this circular formation that's called the supporting cycle, and the star formation that's called the restraining cycle. And it's important to know, principle 3, that the goal of the 5 elements is really about balance. So we're not looking at, oh, the circle is good and the star is bad, and we should avoid going to that restraining cycle. What we're looking at is balance, just like my grandmother did when she saw there was an excess of fire on those 100-degree summer days. She used the restraining cycle of water, right, to make watercress and tofu soup or seaweed soup to cool our constitutions down, right? Likewise, if it was a wind knife day, she would then decide, I'm going to use earth, and earth supports metal to envelop and embrace the metal and bring about healing. So there might be different reactions and responses to how we go about this.
Right.
How you doing, Andrew?
Doing great. Doing great.
Good.
Thank you for sharing.
Comments coming through?
Excuse me. Say that one more time.
Any comments coming through? Because I can't see the comments.
No,
So
no comments yet. No
good,
comments
good.
yet.
All right. I hope you all are hanging in there with us. So
Yep.
with these, there are hundreds of different characteristics that apply to these elements. A body part, the liver, the heart, the lungs, etc. A flavor, bitter, sweet, salty, pungent, etc. Even a voice, crying, groaning, yelling, laughing. A color, as you can imagine. Language. Let's take a deep dive into this and check this out and make sure that we're aligned with our mission. Let's shed some light on this topic and and see what the pros and cons are that's bringing in fire. Metal. Let's put the pedal to the metal, or the nose to the grindstone, right? And see what this is about, so we can bring in language. Formations. A quick standing meaning would be metal. If we needed to bring in earth and do relationship building, we might do a formation of a circle, right? Water or let's say wood, I'd say let's go out and take a walking meeting. Get out of the office and go for a walk. So depending on what elements you need, that's what you'll bring forth. And so what we're going to take a look at is the elements through these 9 archetypes: the philosopher, visionary, optimist, networker, caregiver, facilitator, rock, achiever, and protector. I won't have time today, but you can take a look at the book or the website on the on how these archetypes came about to align with these different elements. But in the shorthand, what we've done and what you've done, Andrew, is go to my website and use the app to calculate your own 5 elements profile.
Yes.
And so what will come of that is your primary element, who you are at your very best. When you are in your element, this is what comes up. For you, Andrew, that means you're a visionary, right? So I would say to that when you're at your very best, you're like a solid tree that's reaching for the sky. Growth is your highest aspiration. And you're always 3 steps ahead of us in saying, what is possible? I've got a better idea. We can do it this way. Innovation, opportunity, creativity is part of, and joy is part of your natural way of being. Yeah.
I love
Um,
that.
we would then also calculate your secondary element, which is who you are when you go in stress. Yeah. And so
Okay.
sometimes we know people that there might be a network or really on fire, but when they go in stress, they go into the philosopher mode and we can't find them. So it's like, what happened to Jules? Well, haven't seen them in a few days and they're locked up in their home. And we don't know if they're, solving the next world problem or they're just uh, binging Real Housewives. That's part of the philosopher. So when you
Right.
go into stress, that's a place where you go. And then the third element that comes up is your relational, which is how other people view you. And so if I didn't know you, Andrew, and I asked Jules, what's he like? Your relational element is Earth or the facilitator. She would describe you more as a facilitator than a visionary. And so
Yes.
that's something that we have to think about and reconcile. And
Mm.
so it's important then to know that for you, Andrew, you're a double visionary caregiver. So the elements that show up naturally for you are wood and earth, which
Mm.
means there are 3 elements that are missing. So if I were to work with you as a coach or consultant, I would then say, let's look at bringing water, fire, and metal into your life so that can then support you and be the whole person you need to be.
Got it.
The interesting thing is then we start layering it. So Andrew, we might take yours and then Jules and Kay's and Kevin's. And so, we could overlay we can overlay 200 profiles on this. And what we do is then we get a read for an organization, right?
Understood.
Or a team or family. And that's when it gets really interesting. So we actually see the underlying patterns, leadership, communication styles, etc., that show up through the 5 elements.
I
So
love that. I
I'm
love.
going to go to the last slide. And if you are all with us and you have your phone and device with you, go ahead and QR, or you can go to my5elements.life/calculator. And what that'll do is that'll bring you up to a page. You enter your birth date, and in about 4 seconds, you'll get your 5 elements profile.
And I did it this morning, and it really is fun to see and read up on all of these elements and how you fit into them. And I appreciate a little personal consultation live right here, Kevin. So thank you.
Thank you. Absolutely. I'm going to stop share so we can see each other and perhaps have a conversation. So
Yeah.
that's great.
Thank you for sharing that, Kevin. And you were speaking a little bit to how, with people in movements and building movements, you have to start with the personal. And then you kind of spoke a little bit about how you can overlay these 5 elements to support in better understanding organizations. And I wonder, could you talk a little bit about how you think about moving from these 5 elements to kind of um, organizations going through a bunch of change right now, and how you can use these 5 elements to support organizational strategy, and how you work with organizations around this?
Absolutely. So I just did worked with a national policy organization, and there are about 24 people on the staff. And so we had everybody calculate their 5 elements profile, made a chart, made a spreadsheet, and then saw what came up. And the interesting elements, just by nature of the people in the room, it was a lot of wood, so a lot of creativity, innovation, positive energy, can do, an optimist sort of perspective. There was a lot of earth, service oriented. What can we do? How can we build this? Thinking about operations and systems and infrastructure. That's what earth does. It creates the conditions for life to thrive, right? And
Right.
there was a lot of metal in the group, and so it was, the A to B personalities. Let's make this happen, bringing the structures, the strategies, etc. So, and they were missing, of course, water and fire. So
Right.
that was very clear in the pieces. And so I just came up with an example of what that might look like metaphorically in their organization. So the wood people would come in and say, "I've got a great idea on how we can address X using AI technology." The earth people is like, "Great, how can we help? How can we support you?" And the metal people were like, "Let's do it." So it's, "I've got a
Right.
great idea. How can I help you? Let's do it. I've got a great idea. How can I help you? Let's do it." And we then had a staff of 24 people, right? And you looked at their website, there were 46 different programs and offerings,
Oof.
right? And
Yeah.
so this notion of wood, which depletes the nutrients from the earth, they were actually, they were acting on every single idea.
Right.
Yeah.
Yep.
Without going up and over through fire and saying, "Great, I've got a great idea. What are the pros and cons?" Yeah. Um,
Right.
uh, is it relevant for our time? Can we get support, community support, financial support, etc.? Right, going up and over through fire, actually shedding light on the idea so you can not only see the idea, but see the shadow it casts. They didn't have that capacity. They were just acting on every idea. So we needed to bring in fire, but we also needed to bring in water. "I've got a great idea." Great, that's wonderful. How does this align with our mission,
Right.
right?
Exactly. Yep.
What does the data tell us in terms of this? And how does this apply if we have people that, in rural or elderly folks who don't have access to AI? Is that actually the best idea for our people, right? And
Right.
so going down to water and making sure that your mission, your values, your philosophy, your data, your strategies are watering, right? As water feeds wood, are watering the right seeds, the right ideas. And then you take it
Right.
up and over to fire. And so my suggestion was to bring water and fire. And there was different language, different pieces around what that looked and felt like, in terms of formation. So I said, instead of talking, because they were really good at talking, I said, bring in, visuals, right? So it's like, okay, we got great ideas. Let's put you in small groups and actually draw a picture of what that might look like, how that might impact our communities. Then we'll bring our pictures together,
Got
right?
it. Yep.
So
Yeah.
take care of it, which brings the fire. Let's look at the pros and cons. Let's bring together some people who might be potential partners, investors, community folks, and talk. So that adds the fire. But also, let's make sure we're checking with the data, right?
Right.
All of
Right.
that. So that became, part of the solution in terms of how they're navigating change through the lens of belonging. Yeah.
I love
Versus
that.
saying, "What's wrong with us? What's wrong with us? How do we?" There was nothing wrong. They were absolutely working from their strengths. We
Right.
just had to balance out those strengths with other strengths to bring that in. And the five elements was sort of an elegant, common sense way to approach this. I mean, a part of that, we've been on for 20 minutes, and my son-in-law works in HR at a biotech company, and he said, "Kevin, I love the five elements because in 15 minutes we can actually be doing something." Whereas another thing, not to diss that, it's just he spent 90 minutes taking a survey and then 3.5 hours learning the system before he could apply it. So,
Yes. It's
finding,
incredibly practical.
yeah,
It's
people
human
are,
centered. It's practical. And I think we're all kind of looking for, I mean, what I love about the five elements framework is that there's no judgment within it's you're allowed to see the imbalance within a
mhm,
system,
yeah.
but there's no judgment there. You have to find solutions to bring in the other elements that aren't present, which I really really appreciate.
Very true. Of the all the possible leadership profiles, there are 81 different ones. And in my estimation, there's not a bad leadership profile. Like Andrew, you put one up, I would go, "Ooh,
Right.
okay, yeah, let's do that." And then if we overlaid you and me, I'm all earth, so I'm triple earth with you as a wood and earth. Then
Okay.
we can see what goes on. Or if we had, you had your best friend and they're bringing in metal and fire, so you bring in earth and wood, they're bringing in metal and fire. What you need is water, yeah, to
Right.
balance out the relationship. So I would say vacation by the beach, right? Make sure that
Yes.
you
Yes.
You hydrate a lot, first with probably water and then other beverages of your choice. Wear blues and blacks, so to balance out the relationship. So yeah,
I love that.
just chilling.
Love that.
So
Yeah, I've got one other question for you, and I know if this is resonating with folks, please leave comments, ask any questions that you might have about the five elements or other aspects of Kevin's work. But what I'm seeing, what Equity in the Center is seeing, what I'm seeing in work with organizations is right now there's so much change.
mhm,
It's causing fractures, maybe mistrust or more conflict within organizations than we have seen in the past. And so I'm wondering how you think about the five elements and how you could use the five elements framework
absolutely.
with building trust, building belonging, or what happens with the five elements when there's conflict. Uh,
Sure.
yeah,
Um, Read chapter 16 in my book, and it's called Transforming Conflict Through the Five Elements. So that's one piece. And sorry, we don't have too much time to get to it
yeah,
today, but the interesting thing to me is all of you now kind of have a sense of what it means to be in each of the elements, right? But to me, what's really fascinating is what happens when you move from one element to the other, when you're moving from water to wood or fire to earth. Yeah, there are different dynamics and transitions that happen. I'll just take one example. So for you, Andrew, you have wood and earth, right?
yes,
Wood and earth. And so the dynamic between wood and earth, you think about wood, you plant seeds in the ground, and um, it takes the nutrients from the earth. Yeah. And so the two dynamics are depletion and breakthrough. Depletion and
Mhm.
breakthrough. So one of the things that happens then is if you're going from, remember, I've got an idea, how can I support you? Right? I've
Right,
got an idea, how can I help? I've got an idea, how can I help? So in your profile, that's your internal dialogue. It's like I've got these great ideas and I got to figure out how to make the world better and how to do
right,
this, right? How I facilitate that to happen. And it could create a sense of depletion where you have so many ideas that it's taking the life energy out of you, right?
yeah.
You're up at 1:30 in the morning saying, why am I working on this idea? These people, I don't even like these people. And yet
You're
I'm
reading me, Kevin. You're
right,
reading me
right.
publicly.
And
Yeah,
so
yes,
it can exhaust you. But the other thing it can do is create a breakthrough. And
right.
so as kind of you have seeds that break through the earth and break things up, that's what that causes. And so sometimes when you have a lot of earth energy, it gets very staid, just like,
Mhm.
so this is how we've done it. This is how we do it. We just, why change it, right? This is just how we
Right,
do it. And that
right.
notion of breakthrough is really helpful. So it allows you to stand at a threshold and see an entire new world. And your choice then is to step through or not, right?
Mm,
Is to
yes.
step into that new world. So there's breakthrough and depletion between fire and earth. It's confidence and apprehension. From earth to metal, it's relief and distress. From metal to water, it would be integration and competition. You'll find all that out in that chapter.
Yep.
Part of it is as you navigate around these five elements and think about how you're interfacing with somebody. It might be, if you and I are feeling not right, like we're feeling a little tense, I
Yep.
might, Andrew, are you feeling depleted? Yeah,
Mm,
that would be the thing I would go to versus are you burnt out, which is a fire to metal thing. So it helps me use the appropriate language that speaks to your condition, and then
mm.
I can find solutions to help address that condition.
I really love that, and thank you for sharing that example.
Mhm.
For sure.
I'll
Um,
share one more thing because a lot
yeah.
of people, so there's a difference between burnout and depletion. A lot of people use the term burnout. Burnout is when there's too much fire to metal. Okay. It's like, and you get this notion of meltdown. If you put too much
Right.
fire to metal, too many irons in the fire and everything melts down. Burnout is this: I am so done. Peace out. I'm out of here. I don't care if we're solving a world problem. I can't do this anymore. Right.
Right.
Depletion,
Right.
wood to earth, is I know I'm making myself sick or I'm killing myself doing this, but I so believe in the mission or the people that I am going to die doing this. To
Right,
stay in, and that I would say, Andrew, is you're more of a depletion person than a burnout person, right?
right,
You make
right.
yourself
Yeah,
sick before you exit. Yeah,
yeah,
because you're
yeah.
loyal to the mission or you're loyal to the people. Yeah. So we there's some nuances around that that really help us decide what are the best avenues, solutions, methodologies for you or your group.
Thank you so much, Kevin, for that, for those
You're welcome.
examples. We've got about 4 minutes left before we're the live stream ends. We've got room for one question, maybe for Kevin before we close out. So we'll leave room for one question, and if no questions are coming in, I'll give it just a second here. If we don't have any questions coming in, Kevin, any closing words for us about your work?
Mm.
And anything that's kind of on your mind with everything going on in the world right now.
I think about this, whoever you are, turn to the wisdom of your ancestors. Ancestors. I mean, we talk about generational trauma, but there's also generational medicine in there. They were whoever they were, however whatever situations they found themselves in, they survived. And so turn to that. I happen to turn to the wisdom of my ancestors, which are based in East Asian philosophy. So explore the five elements. The beauty of that is you can experience the five elements anywhere, right? And so even though I live in the Mission District in the middle of an urban setting and I hear jackhammers or sirens, I know, oh, there's a lot of metal coming here. What is that telling me? Or if I see a grandmother and her grandchild approaching me, I'll say, wow, there's just full of love and earth and tenderness. Yeah.
I
And
love it.
so I think you can play with this and see the elements are all around us in our relationships, in speech, in what we see and hear and feel. And so those can be clues to what you might need to get to right relationship, to get to balance, so you can bring your best self to serve our movements in our communities.
That's fantastic. Thank you, Kevin. I think that is a perfect way to leave some folks with some nuggets of wisdom as we depart today. Kevin, thank you so much for being in conversation and sharing some of your work and frameworks. Thank you all for joining this afternoon or morning for some. Please take a look at all of Kevin's resources. They're in the chat here, and stick around for our next LinkedIn Live next month or two. And again, I'm Andrew Plumley. Really, really happy to be in conversation. Thanks, everyone.